Hello all, this is gonna be me just rambling at the video camera words um, while I ball some yarn because I'm not always great with making eye contact because autistic, yay, and talking about how Hampshire Pride went, why that was such a meaningful market for me, and why I'm equally glad that I attended and also equally sure that I'm never going to vend with them ever again. Um, Hope you enjoy. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with secondhand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. Okay, so starting with the positives, why this was such a important, wonderful market for me to attend. And I'm being annoyed with my yarn in the process because it's still slightly damp. Oh, for crying out loud, fine. I'm gonna do a different piece of yarn. Ball some different yarn. Here we go. Why this was so important for me to attend. I grew up in rural southern Vermont, and my primary exposure to LGBTQIA plus queer culture was older turfy lesbians. A lot of these older turfy lesbians would argue against being labeled as turfs, but I feel that if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and spews the same rhetoric as a duck, it's a freaking duck. So, older turfy lesbians was my primary exposure to queer culture. And as a not only closeted but deep in denial about my own trans masculinity and neuroqueerness, etc., child, teenager, and young adult, I did not always feel safe. And also because it was rural southern Vermont, I watched so many of my cohorts, my age mates, try to get out and make it somewhere else and make it in the big city. Folks moved to New York City. Most folks moved to Los Angeles. One person moved to Boston and actually managed to succeed in staying out of southern Vermont. But almost everyone came back, ended up coming back and just accepting that they were going to be stuck in the small town. That's not an option for me because if I live in my small town, I am allergic to cortisol and adrenaline through my mast cell activation syndrome and through my hyperadrenergic postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I produce a lot of adrenaline very naturally in what's called adrenaline dumps because my body has just over adrenalized throughout its entire life, and as a result my adrenal gland is constantly in the on position, which means that I need to avoid stress, PTSD, CPTSD triggers as much as I can, which is hard when you're neurodivergent, physically disabled, and trans in this society. Thankfully my dissociation skills are on lock, but I'm not able to return to my small town, which is both a blessing and a curse. But moving, but Northampton was always somewhat close by, and it was queer culture that I had never really been exposed to. It was, this is probably problematic wording, but it conveys the intensity of what it was like growing up in rural southern Vermont as a closeted queer kid. Northampton was queer mecca. It was something that I could potentially get out to and stay out and be safe and be with community like me, neurodivergent, chronically ill, and autistic and disabled and artistically inclined. And mutually aidly inclined. And it was moving to I can't express how much living in Northampton with my two incredible partners, 3 cats, the ability to weave and craft, because I'd also been told from a very young age that the arts were not ever going to be a viable source of income or a viable career for me, which is why I was pushed towards library sciences. I adore library sciences, don't get me wrong, but counselors and adults need to stop saying that it's a guaranteed career path for undiagnosed, unsupported, autistic, AFAB children. It's just freaking not. It's like tenure. You're not going to get into one of those jobs unless someone dies. And also, there's more people with masters in library and information science, which you need in order to get one of those jobs, than there are jobs available. Friends don't let friends get really bad haircuts, and friends don't let friends get masters in library and information science without fully informing them that, hey, this is not going to be a viable career for you. Hello, baby girl. Because you also need so many social connections just to get in a foot in the door and just to get an interview. And everyone wants to work at a library. Everyone wants to work at a library. Like, yeah, it's, yeah. But managing to get to Northampton, live in this situation, be safe, be loved, be supported, and create art is incredible. I'm so incredibly fortunate. So many things went my way. There's immense, while I keep track of my immense privilege, because, oh my God, what the heck? But something that this past weekend really, really showed me is that I'm a minority even within my minority community. I am disabled, and I am not trans in a binary way, and my gender doesn't look like other folks, but mostly it's the I'm disabled. And I will never be vending with Hampshire Pride ever again, under its current management, unless they shift management and address a lot of things. And so, like, yes, it was immensely affirming, and I got it there, and I made it, and I'm here, and I'm doing this, but it was equally a reminder of, like, oh, the culture of this town is not perfect. This is not ideal in a lot of situations. And still I'm immensely privileged. So I'm going to relay some things that happened. I do my preface with, I am only going to relay things that happened to me. I am not going to state other stories that I have heard from other people. And if I do, I will clarify that this is something I heard from someone else and not me. Or things that I directly observed. And I will preface that this did not happen to me, but this is something that I observed. So I am physically disabled. And with that, in my applications to art markets, I say, hey, can I be placed closer to a restroom because I have mobility issues? And 9 times out of 10, that is immediately respected by the organizers. In this particular event, because the Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective was also vending, both applications requested that we were close to each other. We were not. I also, as we were getting closer and it became more and more clear that it was going to be a very hot and humid day with storms coming in, and barometric pressure changes, all of which affects my ability to function and not pass out and, die. I sent an email saying, hey, I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I have mobility issues. I would like to be arriving earlier than scheduled so that I can get set up and, be fully in place, and also, like, get content, get video of my setup, because I'm also a content creator. This is an equal part of my job to vending at art markets. I did not hear back. The impression that I get was that that management of this event was in over their heads and not experienced with art markets. That is the impression I got. I do not know that for certain, but that is definitely the impression that I got, that these people have never run an art market in their life, because they made some very, very, they screwed up a lot of things. So I never got an email back of the, like, hey, I need to arrive early. So I just arrived early. I was directed to a spot. I began setting up. They had mapped everything out. They had marked down the spaces with chalk in the parking lot, and very quickly it became very apparent that the person who was running this and organizing this had been up since 5 a.m. And was barking orders and being very abrasive. And yes, this is an incredibly stressful job. This is an incredibly stressful role. I say this as someone who has organized a market and who has worked for a nonprofit. This type of thing, this type of role, you cannot have your own ego involved. You cannot have your own moral goodness or like quality of you as a person tied to the event. It's not going to work out well for you and your psyche, and it's going to cause ripple effects that are going to negatively impact everyone around you. You cannot have your ego tied to this, and you need to be able to be flexible in the moment, or your planning needs to be so immaculate that you don't have any errors in the moment. And there were definitely some errors in the moment. So it turns out the spot that I was directed to was not the spot that I was supposed to be at, and none of the chalk outlines were numbered because they'd apparently had like maps made of where every vendor was going to be and had those published for like customers and stuff. I was directed to the wrong location, first of all. Not great. I started setting up in that wrong location because that's the location I was directed to. And based on the map, it seemed map I had been given saying where I was going to be going, it seemed about right. At that point, about like halfway through setup initially, go on, Penelope. About halfway through setup initially, I was like, I got, hey, you're in the wrong spot. We need to move you. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. I've already 75% set up. I am disabled. I am not moving unless multiple people can assist me with that, because I was directed to this location. I was not trying to be rude about this. I was not being disrespectful. I was not talking back. But I was being very firm I was directed here. Plan of attack always, this is basic, planning and strategicness. Nothing goes right once everyone's in place. I'm not moving unless I have a bunch of people helping me move, because I was directed here, and also it's really hot and really humid. No one answered my email. I'm not putting my health at risk for you to have one thing, not have one thing wrong about the map that you did not actually articulate well to the vendors. Because I was not the only person who was just directed to a wrong location. And things kept happening. There was this freaking cop, yes, good job making sure that no one was bringing a bomb into it. But also, I have PTSD around dogs, and this cop just let his dog near me without informing me, without giving any sort of heads up. Hey, my dog's going to be coming into your booth. I froze. I was fully in freeze moment. I kept trying not to make myself a threat to the dog, because I know that dogs don't react well to adrenaline and fear, especially cop dogs. And said, "Dog away, please. Dog away, please." He replied with, "Oh, it's a cop dog." I'm like, I replied with, "I have PTSD. Dog away, please, now." And then he finally moved the dog. Cops don't belong at Pride. Cops don't belong at Pride. There was possibly a private security system hired. I don't know. I don't know why they would have been needed, because Western Mass Dyke Patrol was on the scene. But there were guys that looked like ice around the entire event, and it made a lot of people freaked out, including me. So not happy about that. But I was then 90% set up, and the people who are this one organizer who kept making passive aggressive comments of well, I guess I'm sorry, I can't be perfect with my outlines, just all sorts of snippy, unnecessary nonsense. It's okay, cool. If you're not able to regulate your emotions or step away to regulate your emotions, again, you shouldn't be in this role. Why are you putting this on you? What the heck? You are doing more harm than good. This is a public service job that you are doing, and you are not presenting yourself and your organization well at all. And I was 95% set up. I was excited, I was on track, I was prepared, and then they were like, nope, we are going to have to move you. Here are volunteers to help move things. They then proceeded to start to do that. I moved myself and my wheelchair, because I had brought that with me because I knew I was going to be having a hard time with humidity and heat, to the new location, trusting that they would get things moved in a timely manner so that I could continue setting up and be ready on time, because why else would they be requiring me to move if not to set up on time? And I then proceeded to spend 5 to 10 minutes sitting in the blazing hot sun, doing my best to not pass out. And while they stopped moving my tent and started moving other people's tents instead. I've been very clear with multiple people. I am disabled. I am affected by the heat. I need this. I set up this way. I sent an email reforming and requesting that this be allowed. Didn't hear back from anybody. So I'm sitting for 5 to 10 minutes, probably around 8, I don't know. Kind of goes in and out when you are doing your best to not pass out. And then finally I shouted over called in an elevated voice, but just get heard. I was not yelling at any volunteers. Hey, I need my tent in place now, or I'm going to pass out, and you are going to be filling out the paperwork for that and paying my medical bills. And that got them to move. But it should never have gotten to that point, and I should not have been required to move, because the person that they were requiring me to move for never showed up. Never showed up. The space was blank. No one showed up. I was made to move for no reason. I put my health at risk, my supplies at risk, my art at risk, and the entire day at risk, because they had a map that no one else was following anyways. So I'm pissed about that. That's enough. That's one reason that I'm never vending with them ever again. The other reason is that, number one, they did not actually enforce the weight requirement for the tents. If you're not an art market vendor, you will not understand, but having at least 40 pounds of weight per tent leg is mandatory for 90% of the art markets that I've gone to. And if it is not marked as mandatory in a event application, I will not be going to that event, because wind picks up so quickly. It goes from 0 to 100 so quickly, with tents flipping over, affecting other people's tents, etc. And there was a storm burst towards the end of the day, with active thunder and lightning and high winds, and multiple tents flipped over. This happened at Hampshire Pride last year, and apparently no one actually learned from that in the Pride organizers, which is part of why I'm really excited for getting to the queer pop-up market this upcoming Saturday, or tomorrow when you're watching this video. Because they are very, very firm about your tent needs to be weighed down. And so many people's tents weren't, including the cult that gave me an eating disorder. Content warning for eating disorders and 12-step programs. I am not interested in hearing any chatter about, oh, well, it helped me so much, or oh, it helped my cousin so much. Statistically speaking, the highest success rate on statistical averages is for a 12-step program is 2 to 5% success rate. That is an average of 95% failure. I was required to go to Overeaters Anonymous as part of my rent as a young adult to stay housed with my parents. It screwed me up a lot. I am deeply, deeply proud of myself for not relapsing into denying myself food or denying myself care after being across from a cult at Pride. After having been made to move and had my health put at risk for no goddamn reason. So I'm pissed about that as well. Um, and then when there was the storm burst and everyone was scrambling, everyone was trying to get in and out of the um, brain fart, parking garage. And it was incredibly backed up. There were nearly multiple car accidents. And looking back at the instructions for exiting, there was no storm plan. There was no, like, okay, we're going to do this staggered. We're going to, like, everyone gets out at a certain point. Like, here's when you can leave. Here's when you can bring your car in, which is the mark of a good market. And a good organizational thing. And usually that you don't find that out until, like, the week before when they email you the, like, update. Like, here's more information, which is annoying. But there was a cloudburst. I nearly lost so much product. I'm so incredibly thankful that my younger brother was there and able to help me get in. But again, I almost passed out multiple times in the parking garage. And it was just, I made good sales. I made really good sales for a market that is at the beginning of the season in miserable weather. Like there were, and wasn't able to be the entire day because the storm hit around like 3/4 of the way through. We weren't able to finish the entire event, but so many things went wrong and were so poorly managed that I'm genuinely really looking forward to yet another queer pop-up market, which is the gold standard for art markets in the area as far as I and many other people are concerned. Because I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air. It's going to be a actual revitalization. It's going to be an actual, like, no, I actually, like, not only have I made it, but I've been here the entire time. I've been here the whole time. Can you tell I watched Dropout? But it was disappointing in a lot of ways. And part of that is on me in that I hyped this up in my mind a great deal, but most of that is, jeez and crow, this was poorly managed. This was so poorly managed. And it's making me feel a bit better about the nonprofit that I helped found, because we actually internalized things when people were telling us. But, not great. Not great. Not a good feeling to feel othered and disposable and not supported at a Pride event for your community that you are selling things at and needing to be supported by, especially in this political climate. Not great. Not great. Not good feeling at all. And I was already going to be making a fairly snippy video about accessibility at Pride, because if Pride isn't accessible, it's not Pride. Just ew. The entire thing really left a bad taste in my mouth. And I will not be vending with them ever again, unless there's a drastic shift in management, which I don't think there's going to be, because I've lost faith in that organization pretty much entirely. Like, I'm gonna put this in perspective. Queer Joy Collaborative, which is another local nonprofit in this area who primarily does singing and choruses for adults and youth, is hosting a art market, and they did a bunch of advertising, and they got a lot of pushback for the cost. Because that's another thing. I paid $200 to be in this market. $200. That is a insanely high price for a art market. Usually I will not go over 60, but it was this event, so I wanted to. But Queer Joy Collaborative, like, initially put out, like, hey, we're doing this art market, the vending fee is going to be, $85 to $95. And we would like a $20, quality item to raffle off as a fundraiser. And they got a lot of pushback for that, and they listened. They listened, and they learned, and they internalized, because they don't have their ego involved in this. Now, QJC has their own issues with their own masking policies that I'm not going to get into because it's not an organization that I'm entirely involved with. But it is something that I'm noting and observing as a disabled person who might potentially want to sing someday. I'm not going to sing unless they make masks mandatory for folks who can use masks. I can't mask reliably. If it's over 50% humidity or even like over 20% humidity and it's hot, I will break out in hives and I will pass out. And that's part of why I love Yet Another Queer Pop-Up Market, is that M&J, who organized that, understands that. They know that I want to be masking. They know that I get scared when they do have mandatory masking inside. So they will put me in a situation where I do not have to mandatory mask. But they understand that, like, no, communal masking is the best way. The pandemic never fucking went away. Pardon my French. The pandemic never went away. It just didn't. And more people are going to be getting POTS, mast cell activation syndrome, POTS, yeah, and dysautonomic issues because, shockingly, COVID affects your autoimmune system. You're going to end up disabled if you keep catching COVID. That's just how it works. But yeah, I'm very, very happy that I went. I'm very, very happy that I got in. I'm never vending with these people ever again because it is not worth the risk to my health and my stock. I have insurance for my stock and my business. But so many people didn't, and they did not. They said very clearly in their email, if you don't have tent weights, you're going to be told to take things down and go away. They didn't do that. They did not have the cojones to back that up. Why have a ballroom with no balls? Still a bit miffed. But very much looking forward to Yet Another Queer Pop-Up Market this weekend. But also realizing that getting into a specific market doesn't detract from the quality of my work and the having made it that I feel. It was more of a reminder that I made it regardless of what market I got into. And my quality of my work and myself as an art market vendor is not determined on whether or not I got into a specific market. It's determined in the continued showing up and being a member of this community and valuing my community. Because the ironic thing about all of this is I got a Facebook memory, like happens, and 2 years ago, and 2 years and a day ago, before the Hampshire Pride, I had sold my first scarf on Etsy, back when I was still on Etsy. I'm not longer going to be on Etsy because their management also sucks. But I sold my first scarf. And it was a superwash merino yarn that I had found at the thrift store at the Goodwill, and it was hand dyed in a colorway called Spite. And I'm still here, and I'm still standing 2 years later after selling my first scarf. I am a valued member of this community, and I work to do mutual aid as best I can within the limitations of my body and its reactions and its allergic reactions to stress. And I'm here, and I'm queer, and I'm in Northampton with my 2 wonderful, gorgeous partners and our 3 cats in a first floor apartment with the possibility of moving into a 3-bedroom, like, long-term housing situation within the next 5 years. And I've made it. I'm here, I'm queer, I'm in Northampton, and I am a successful artist who is not having a flare of his eating disorder. So I'm very and I cannot thank everyone in the Yarn Brat fandom enough. Because also the amount of smiles and just, like, happiness that my descriptions of all of you induces in customers and people who are looking at my wares cannot be overstated. It's part of the spiel, because I've got the entire spiel of like, hi, happy to let you browse, happy to give you the spiel, but only with spiel consent. And then usually, if they like, oh, give me I give consent, give me the spiel. It's like, okay, everything's hand woven. It's all thrift store, secondhand yarn, zero waste. All the scraps go into the scrappy sachets, which are still drying out behind me. And everything, yeah, everything's here. I also have a YouTube channel with a fandom that has declared themselves a fandom. The best fans ever, best followers ever. They call themselves, number one, they've declared themselves a fandom. Number two, they started calling themselves the Yarn Brats because they take schadenfreude-esque joy in watching me be forced to have my imposter syndrome dissolve in real time. And also like watching my cats bully me. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, that is hilarious. That is wonderful. What is the name of the YouTube channel? And then we get more Yarn Brats. And I'm just, this YouTube thing wasn't supposed to work. And it keeps doing so. And yeah, some of that is that I keep making content on a regular basis, but also so much of that is everyone here, and just thank you so much. I'm so incredibly happy and glad to be here at this point of my life, and I am so glad that it didn't end. Thank you for coming along for this ride, and I can't wait to see where I go next, because yeah, what the heck? This is happening. This is happening. Oh, also, I recognized myself in the mirror for the first time a few days ago, because the hair is actually starting to freaking come in, and I had this whole moment of, oh, there you are, and just, yeah. I was gonna be balling yarn during this. That didn't happen, but oh well. Bye, everybody, and I hope that you have a really good weekend, and thank you for coming along for Hokusong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and just, yeah, I get to be happy. We get to be happy. What the heck?